So in our last video, we explored this relationship, this formula here, cost plus markup equals the selling price. And we set it up in a little table where we described each of those amounts with a percent and a dollar amount. In our last video, we were talking about markup based on cost. And in that case, what that meant was the 100% always went with the cost. Well, now we're going to explore a different type of markup, which is going to be markup based on the selling price. And when the markup is based on the selling price, that's saying that the base of that percent of that calculation is the selling price. So now what that means is the 100% is going to go with the selling price. That is the base amount. So let's do some examples of this calculation. So if we have a selling price, again, I'm just going to abbreviate selling price as SP, of $250, and we are given a 30% markup on selling price. So it looks like, again, we only have two pieces of information, but we actually do have three. So let's look at our table here. It's going to stay exactly the same to begin with. Cost plus markup equals the selling price. And just like before, we're going to have percents on the left side and dollars on the right side. And we can fill in our information. $250, it goes on the dollar side of the selling price. 30% goes on the percent side for the markup. And the hidden piece of information, or the subtle piece here, is the on selling price. What that means is 100%, the base of our calculation is the selling price. So this is going to be a little different. Before, remember, it was always cost plus the markup had to equal the selling price. Well, it's still the same. Whatever that cost is when we add it to the markup has to give us the selling price, which was 100%. The number that's going to go in there is 70%, because 70 plus 30 equals 100. Now, I have to tell you, I haven't told you what we're going to be asked to find yet. So for this problem, let's get asked to find the dollar amount of the markup. So the dollar amount of the markup is this piece right here. Now, just like before, we need two lines out of this table. One line is the amount that we have both the percent and the dollar amount for. That's going to be the selling price. And the other line is going to be the line that has what we're trying to find. And here that is the dollar amount of the markup. So that means we can ignore that top line of the cost. So we have our proportion here right in our table. And we'll cross multiply and divide. 30%, or just actually 30 times 250 divided by the 100 should give us $75 as our markup. So the dollar markup of $75. So we get another example. In this example, we are given the selling price of $440. We are given that we have a 25% markup on selling price. And let's do the whole problem up front here. This time we're going to ask to find the cost. So once again, table looks exactly the same. Cost plus markup equals selling price. Percents on the left, dollars on the right. We are given $440 is the dollar amount of the selling price. 25% markup, so that'll be on the percent side of the markup. Again, that phrase on selling price tells us that 100% goes with the selling price. So once again, those two values have to add up to the selling price. The percent of the markup plus the percent of the cost has to add up to the percent of the selling price, which means that our percent for cost has to be 75%. Note that those do add up now. Now what we're trying to find the cost. That's this value up here. So now for the selling price, we have both numbers. Cost contains the number we're looking for. So in this case, it's going to be that center line that we don't need, that center row. So we have our proportion set up here. 75 over 100 equals blank over 440. We can cross multiply and divide. 75 times 440 divided by 100, which should be $330. Now, in each of those last two problems, you may have seen that there were other ways we could have gone about it. In this one, we could have found the dollar amount of the markup first and subtracted to get back to the cost. And we wouldn't have had to deal with combining our percents over here. But in many cases, we have to be able to work with those percents. For example, let's say that I am going to give you that our cost is $440. We have a 20% markup on selling price, and I'm going to ask you to find, in this case, the dollar markup. All it is, once again, cost plus markup equals the selling price. For cents and dollars, once again. Now we have $440, but this time it is the cost. So that goes on the dollar side for the cost. 20% markup, so 20% goes on the percent side for the markup. On selling price, tells us 100% still goes with the selling price. Now we have to find that percent for the cost. Working backwards, 100 minus 20 gives us 80% for the cost. Notice 80 plus 20 gives us the 100. So that adds up. We're asked to find the dollar markup. That's this value right here. So again, we have the row that has both numbers. The cost has both the percent and the dollars. The markup has the number we're looking for. Remember, we must always have the number on the other side of what we're looking for. So that means I don't need the bottom row this time. So I'm going to cross multiply and divide here. 20 times 440 divided by 80 is going to give us $110. So there's a markup of $110. Let's look at a little bit simpler example here. Let's say I give you that we have a cost of $126 and a selling price of $180, and I want you to find the percent markup on selling price. So once again, formula is cost plus markup equals selling price. The information we have, $126 cost. On the dollar side, $126 goes with the cost. $180 selling price. On the dollar side, $180 goes with the selling price. Now, again, it looks like that's all the information we have, but we're asked to find the percent markup on selling price, which implies, once again, the 100% goes with the selling price. Now, we can't do any adding or subtracting on the percent side here because we only have the one number, the 100%. But on the dollar side, we can. We can find that markup because cost plus markup has to equal selling price. 126 plus whatever this markup is has to equal that selling price of $180. So to find that, we're just going to subtract 180 minus 126 is going to give us $54. That's a $54 markup. Now we are asked to find the percent markup. So that's this number here. Once again, we have the bottom row where we have both the percent and the dollar amount. The markup has what we're looking for, and we have the dollar amount on the other side. So I can ignore that top row, and I have my proportion right there. blank over 100 equals 54 over 180. I can cross multiply. The two numbers that are diagonal now are the 100 and the 54. So it's 100 times 54 divided by 180. And we get 30. So that's 30%. So that's a 30% markup on selling price. One last example that illustrates again the importance of being able to add and subtract the percents as well as being able to add and subtract the dollar amounts. If we're given that we have a cost of $210 and that we have a 30% markup on selling price, and I ask you to find the selling price. So again, cost plus markup equals our selling price. Do it with percents and dollars. Information we have, $210 cost. So on the dollar side, 210 goes in for the cost. 30% markup. So on the percent side, 30% for the markup. On selling price, once again, the 100% goes with the selling price. So that means, again, we can work backwards to subtract 100 minus 30 tells us the cost has to be 70%. Again, it always has to be true that cost plus markup has to equal selling price. So 70 plus 30 is 100. We're asked to find the dollar amount of the selling price. That's that over there. So that means it's this middle row that we don't need. We're going to cross multiply 100 times 210 divided by the 70, which will give us $300. So $300 is our selling price. So that is the basics of markup based on selling price.